Chapter 7. Hear Me Now. Principal Lyulf sat at his desk. The red light above illuminated the room enough to see the forms he had to complete. He was good at looking calm. However, in reality, he was tense and uncertain. Many concerns plagued his mind, but the most pressing related not to the school or students, but a task he was entrusted with, an order he had to fulfill. While in the midst of thought, there was a knock on the door to his office. He couldn't sense an aura nearby, but he knew exactly who it was. Lyulf used his prominent demon power to open the door with telekinesis without looking away from his work.
You should respond when I knock on the door, Principal.
Just come in, quickly.
A woman entered the office and shut the door behind her, leaning against it as she watched the principal work. She stood quietly, waiting for some form of acknowledgement. After a minute of silence, Lyulf asked,
So, are you known as Belladonna now?
She nodded. This woman put up a facade known as Belladonna, a first year whose race was unknown amongst the other students. She wished to keep it that way, as her presence at Benjiro Senior School needed to be minimal.
I hope the necklace you're forcing me to wear is working,
she added in annoyance. She crossed her arms and looked to the floor.
He tried questioning me before. If anyone finds out my race, I could be in serious trouble.
No one will know your real identity, Roza.
Upon hearing her name, Roza skipped over and vaulted herself onto the desk, sitting with her legs crossed and her back facing Lyulf. The principal peered up to question her actions. She looked back at him and giggled with a devilish grin.
Oh, I thought we weren't meant to use my real name, Lyulf.
Oh, of course. My apologies, Belladonna.
The principal was almost intimidated by Roza. For a split second, the red light above tricked him into thinking all of her hair was blood red. He had known her for a short time, but he noticed that her mannerisms and actions seemed to change frequently, almost as if her personality was warped.
Please, would you get off my desk? You're sitting on my work.
Roza smiled at the principal and turned her attention to the work he referred to. She slipped the sheet out from underneath her and read it. Lyulf was starting to get frustrated with her childishness.
This isn't important.
Roza slapped the paper down and finally hopped off the desk. She stared down the principal, standing tall with her arms crossed. Lyulf wasn't sure how to respond. Her personality was forever rotating between serious and cautious to childish and innocent. He was yet to find a way to predict her moods.
What's important is that you give me an update on our mission. I'm getting bored of pretending to do schoolwork.
You've only been known to your class for a day. We need to assess the situation, and once we've got permission, we can proceed. Please, you need to be patient. Otherwise, both our heads will be on the chopping block.
Roza understood what he was saying, but was annoyed nonetheless. As Lyulf wanted to continue, he suddenly sensed an aura approaching the office from the outside.
Do me a favor, Belladonna. Hide.
This confused Roza. As she was about to ask why, Lyulf's eyes locked onto Roza's with a look of seriousness.
Hide, now!
She nodded and obeyed his command. Each race owns unique abilities. Roza's race held many, one of which enabled her to hide very easily and very quickly. With a flick of her fingers, Roza turned into a small black bat. Wanting to see who the principal was concerned about, Roza flew up and hung upside down on the window's curtain railing, making sure her view was acceptable. A couple of seconds later, there was a knock at the door. Lyulf once again used his powers to open the door.
Welcome, Zane.
Roza peered across the room to see the demon enter the cabin, his hood covering his face and hair, his presence being one that instilled fear to the hearts of the weary. "Hello, Principal Lyulf."
What brings you to my office?
Roza could tell by watching the principal that he was incredibly nervous. He had been tasked with keeping her real identity secret while attending this school. Being in the presence of both her and her target clearly put him on guard. "I have a request," he said, approaching the desk. Roza decided to sit and listen before making any approach. "I wish to enter the fighting tournament."
Really? This request is unusual since you are not a student.
"I understand. However, Mr. Kago said I should speak to you about the situation. A student of yours named Barrett has challenged me to enter the tournament. If he's knocked out before me, he'll leave Yulia alone."
Leave her alone? What is he doing to her?
"He's trying to get together with her. She's denied him, but Barrett doesn't seem to know the meaning of no," scowled Zane, his anger clear to Lyulf. Roza also detected his anger and found an opportune moment. She quietly began to fly across the room until she was in front of the door.
Well, in that case...
Roza flew down and turned back into her normal form mid-air. She aimed herself for Zane and kneed him in the spine. Both fell to the ground with Zane on his stomach and Roza directly on top of him, sitting on his back with her hands to his neck. Zane felt a sharp pain in his spine as he was forced to the ground. The attack had caught him by surprise. He didn't know who was attacking him or why, but he had to fight back. As he tried to struggle free, Zane suddenly felt sleepy, drowsy and weary. Something struck the back of his head, but it wasn't painful at all. Zane began to slide into unconsciousness.
What are you doing?
Yelled Lyulf, powerless to intervene. The principal was unsure of why Roza would strike in the middle of conversation. Roza brushed her hand through Zane's hair slowly, proceeding to yank it to hold his head off the ground, ensuring that Zane was now unconscious thanks to her powers. She giggled once more. This time it was less childish and more psychotic.
I'm merely curious about what his nightmares are like.
No, Roza! Now is not the time.
She peered up to see Lyulf's dynamic yellow eyes glowing brighter than ever before. This wasn't intimidating to her, but she knew she must obey his orders.
Aww, well if I can't, can I at least have a nibble?
Roza leaned down so her mouth was near Zane's neck. She licked her lips in anticipation. Her razor-sharp teeth inched closer to his flesh.
Again, no. We can't compromise our mission. And I can play this off, but no bite marks or nightmares yet. Like I said before, be patient. Once we've been given permission, you'll have free reign.
Roza stood, stepped over Zane, and approached the principal. He hadn't moved, but readied himself in case she retaliated. Within a flash, she grabbed his tie and pulled him down to her height, her lips centimeters away from his neck.
Remember, Principal, As a rose vampire, I require blood more frequently than an average vampire. You'd best find me some dinner, or soon you'll be the one on my plate.
After her sentence, Rosa licked Lyulf's neck, marking the spot she threatened to bite him. This threat stunned Lyulf and sent chills down his spine.
I'll find someone for you, Belladonna.
Zane awoke suddenly. The warmth of his bedsheets wasn't as comforting as it should have been. He launched to his feet, but stumbled, dazed and confused. He couldn't think or even walk straight.
What just happened? Wasn't I...
He peered around his cabin. Nothing was unfamiliar about it, but Zane felt like he shouldn't be there.
I was just in the principal's office. So why am I now here?
Zane rested his head in the palm of his hand, attempting to think back to his last memory. All he could remember was entering the office and asking the principal for permission to enter the upcoming tournament. Everything that occurred afterward now seemed foreign to him, forgotten. After a few minutes of pacing around his cabin in deep thought, there was a familiar knock at his door. The aura was friendly.
Come in.
Yulia opened the door ecstatically and rushed inside the dimmed cabin.
Zane! Great news!
Zane minorly reflected her excitement despite his situation.
What news?
I'm assuming you were told to wait for your answer from the principal, because look what I found tucked underneath your door.
Wait. What?
Yulia was holding a folded piece of paper in her outstretched hand, which Zane took and read to himself. Zane. After our interesting chat, I decided to give some thought about your request to enter the Benjiro Senior School biannual fighting tournament. It is unconventional, as you are not an enrolled student, but as you are attending classes, I've come to the conclusion that I will allow you to enter. I'm keen to see how you fight. Yours truly, Principal Lyulf. An interesting conversation. Zane remembered asking about joining, but he couldn't remember how the conversation ended.
You're in! Now you can kick Barrett's butt.
Well, regardless of what happened in the office, I got the result I was after. I now have permission to enter the fighting tournament. I guess I shouldn't worry about it. I'll leave it for now. But if I see the principal again, I need to speak to him out in the open. Perhaps then he might tell me what our interesting conversation was. Not only that, but the whole princess thing with Belladonna earlier. Both situations are just... If I see her, I'll keep a close eye on her in case I see anything unusual. It's all I can do, really.